Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. We're going to do an isolated video on splatter painting with Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White. That's not what this type of paint is probably designed for. I think more people use it in terms of doing things like illustrations, using it with gouache, blocking out certain areas on, I don't know, different types of paintings and whatnot. I use it in a very simplistic form because it works perfectly for that. And that's doing kind of splatter painting techniques to represent stars, splashes in water, or just texture overall in my pieces. Oh, in a piece like this, I've done some little splatter paintings down here at the base of the rocks, splashing in the waves, some crashing waves back over here, those little types of things like that. But those little types of kind of varied spray patterns work really well for things like nighttime skies and whatnot. You can create a whole Milky Way with just a little splatter painting with a toothbrush or some other type of kind of bristle formatted tool. I think the toothbrush works really great for my purposes. Before I start this, one of the things that I've heard is that it's kind of hard to find some just plain toothbrushes like this because they all have those gum stimulators and whatnot, the little rubber types of, I don't know, whatever teeth to get into certain areas when you're brushing. So I would recommend just a plain toothbrush and whatnot. But I saw what someone meant when they said, hey, they can't find just like a regular toothbrush. But I did see some brushes on like Amazon. But I would guess that if you go into a drugstore, there would still be some of these remaining. Now, someone asked me recently if this was like a soft, medium, or stiff brush bristle one. I don't know what it is. It's probably one of those just free from the dentist. I would imagine it's, probably a medium soft if there's such thing. I don't think it would be a firm one. I don't think they would be handing out things like that at a dentist office, but I don't know. I've been using this one probably for, I don't know, 15, 20 years or something like that. And I don't know, it works great for me. This type of paint cleans out really easy out of this brush. This paint here, and I would imagine you can use other types of paints and whatnot, but the bleed proof white works really great for me. Now I have two bottles right here out because I thought we would kind of mix them to a different consistency. So if we can see that if some really kind of thick applications of it with the toothbrush will be different than kind of a thinner version of it, okay? Now, I guess we can use the same paint, but just kind of dilute it down. Well, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But anyways, I don't know how old this is. Someone said, oh, they saw my, price there. It's probably more expensive these days, but one bottle of this can really last a long time. I use it minimally. I use it all the time, but I don't use a large, a lot of it at any given time. It's probably maybe one or two drops at most for like one whole scene or whatnot. But a lot of calligraphers use this type of thing for lettering and whatnot to look to create uh, typography or letter forms on darker backgrounds, black or whatever, or any kind of dark types of paper. Okay, so that being said, the way that this paint comes is it comes. Now this bottle is down to about right here. Okay, so I don't know. That's probably like 10 years worth or something like that. And I use it a pretty decent amount in the way that I use it, but it just really lasts a really long time. Okay, now if I didn't mention it, what this is it's some, I don't know what material in it makes it really opaque, but this is a very, very opaque watercolor white paint, okay? And the way that it comes, if you get it this brand new, the bottle is probably sealed off pretty well, and there's probably a little bit of moisture in it, but the way that you use this is you have to reconstitute it with some water, usually, okay? Now, even if I do this, I squirt a little water in there and I mix it up. Chances are the next time I go back to use this again, if I don't use it right away, like in a couple days or something like that, it kind of um, it dries out again. It evaporates, And it's not a problem though. This material can be rock hard. It could be sitting on the bottom, just bone dry, cracking and whatnot. But you just add some water in there, and it reconstitutes beautifully. Okay, now you don't need to mix up the entire bottle. Let's say you get a brand new bottle of it. It doesn't need to be, reconstituted from top to bottom. All you need is a little bit on the top surface. So I just take anything, paintbrush or whatever, and I just mix it up like that. Now recently, I've started just using this amount, that I have on this. You can kind of wipe it off like that, but you can also put it on your toothbrush like this and just put it on the tip. Now I'm loading this kind of from, I told someone recently, maybe about a third of this brush, because I'm probably not getting paint all the way into this front half of it right here. Okay, it's probably more like this amount. Okay, because I'm kind of dipping this into the bottle like this. Okay, and it's going in at an angle. Okay, I'll tilt the bottle, to get in there. So I don't know if you can see that on camera, but yeah, okay, yeah, I think you can see it. That's about all you need. Now what you do is you kind of rub this on the bottle too, so you're not even using that amount. You're kind of squeezing some of it out because you don't need that so much excess in there. Okay? And get a pretty decent amount of it out of there. Okay, now that's about all I want. It's just a little bit on the tip like that. I have some little crusty bits coming off of the bottle. So let's get this off. This is just a piece of blue Splattering paper. It was kind of my scratch paper. I was doing some cloud tests on it before. But this is at the back of it. I did some test prints of some white pigment ink lettering on that. But let's show you what this might look like. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here. And let's take a close look at my technique here. Okay, now I'm not going to splatter paint like zip like that, okay? The ink is, or the paint is in that little section up front. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of just, I'll do it on the back of my brush, okay? But I'm doing it in the front of it when I start using. But when I do this, I'm just going like this. See, I pull it back and I'm releasing, okay, here. I'm releasing just a couple little bristles at any given time. Then I might go back up and do it again. See, that's the way I'm doing it. See how there's just very few bristles are being released? Now let's do it on the front, on the paper, and you can see how I'm doing this, okay? So let's say my paper is about right here, okay? Usually I don't start splatter painting over my paper because I can get a drip down like that, okay? But let's just do it. This is just for demonstration purposes, okay? So watch my thumb. And then you kind of move it around. You kind of have to, practice that. Whenever you load this up and get ready to do a little splatter painting like that, kind of practice on a piece of paper. Because sometimes when I'm doing this, it's going like over here, and sometimes I'm doing this and it's going over this way. This way, it's going kind of, to spray, rough spray. And also you have to kind of figure out how far, how distant from your paper do you want it to be. If you go more distant, chances are you'll get a much larger spray pattern because it's going at an angle out like that. So if you want a very targeted area, like in this scene right here, I might have to go real close to it because I want that spray pattern to be targeted. I don't want it to go everywhere like over my sailboat or something like that, okay? So you hold it up high, much larger pattern or area coverage, I guess. See that? Okay, now that was I don't know. I would kind of describe this kind of as I usually say like a thin syrup or something. Imagine you added kind of like it's thinner than Elmer's glue or something like that, okay? But just slightly. But I guess that's about right, you like an Elmer's glue or something like that. Well, okay, this was thinner, okay? But let's take a look at the spray pattern that was achieved. Let me wipe this off here. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at this spray paint. Okay, you can see my hand by kind of relation, okay? But you can see how I got some really small dots, and this is where the bleed-proof white comes in handy, okay? Now that little crumbs that were falling off, that was from the dried paint on the bottle opening over the top. But see those little spray pattern back there? But see, even the most, I don't know, the most minute, I don't know, that's probably like a, it's not even a millimeter. That's probably like a millimeter right there. Okay, but see how even the tiniest of dots are relatively opaque. All right? That's where the bleed-proof white really kind of comes through. But see, some of these, other dots right here are larger, but I think that that variation is really good for what we're going after. Sometimes it comes out more consistent, but I look for that. I look for the range, and also for the I don't call it random, but the varied pattern of kind of spray. It's a little bit thicker here, less here. That's better than kind of a super uniform coverage if it represents something like stars. That looks like stars to me. Okay? But see, even at the smallest little ones right in here. And this is all dry too. Okay? This stuff is really great. Whatever it is that makes it super opaque is the thing that I think makes it dry really fast. I think it's like something like really chalky or something like that. All right, let's do this back part here. And, okay, so I do have some paint in here still, but it's pretty much been, whatever, splatter painted out of there. Okay, now let's go with this other bottle, but let's keep this one. I'll try to keep it, I don't know, I'm used to just taking a spray bottle and getting it the exact right consistency that I want. But here, let me just purposely try to use less water here, and let me try to get a thicker consistency. Yeah, see, this is much thicker. Now this is maybe like Elmer's glue or something like that. Okay, let me get it really mixed up here. Let me get a lot of that paint mixed in here to make it really syrupy thick. I don't know if you can tell, and it's dripping right down, but the drip is kind of hanging there a lot longer on my paintbrush here. Okay, let's try to go really thick. Now, I don't recommend going thick. I don't know, but maybe we just kind of purposely get. Yeah, that's really thick and oozy. Okay, this is like I don't know. This consistency is like maple syrup or something like that. It might, I don't know, it might spray the same. I think I might get larger um, dots than, what I typically get. I don't know. I don't vary my paint thickness too much. I'd say it's pretty consistent. Okay, but let's try this right here. Yeah, that's really thick. Okay, but still kind of squeegee some out of there. Just run it against the side of the bottle like that. Okay. I mean, it works great in scenes, but I always tell people if you do this against anything, if you have lettering and typography stamps, or just about anything, it's just a great overall kind of texture to add to something. It adds kind of light back into a darker field. It doesn't mean it has to be dark, but it could be silver or something like gold or something like that, and it looks really great on that. Okay, so we have that. Let's use that same kind of methodology. I'd say I'm about 6 inches away here, but let's take a look and see how this goes. Okay, it's a thicker paint, so what I'm finding is that I think I need to kind of pull back on this so that my bristles spring forward a little bit more. Just because the paint is thicker, so it needs maybe a little bit more force to come off the brush. My pattern here, well, I don't know. It looks about the same, I'd say. I was going to say, now see, I've gone over this a few times, like 5 times. Okay, so the paint is getting, there's not as much paint on here as when I first dipped it, but the first kind of batch here, I'm getting some larger dots in general, I think, larger splatters, okay? Let's take a look at this side. See, yeah, see, those are, even the larger dots right there, I think they're smaller in general than these ones right here. I don't know, there's just more of them right here. So the thicker you go, I mean, I guess it makes sense that, you'll get kind of a larger dot because it's not breaking up. It's not spraying like it into a fine mist as much as a thinner version of it. So I don't know. Maybe you use that to your advantage in terms of the variation. Use it thicker for the thick versions, and if you want just a very faint pattern, oops, I went across that one. You can see where my um, thicker one didn't dry fast. The smaller ones are dry though, but on something like that, you could potentially. Okay, now I'm really kind of mopping it up. Now, if this was on glossy cardstock, and if you didn't like some of it, it'll just wipe right off. Let me try something here. I just wet this a little bit, but see, this is watercolor, so now that looks wet, but the paper's still wet. But see that right there? This paint really is very, very surface oriented, so you can kind of just wipe it right off. Now I've left a little residue on that with the startering paper, but I don't know. I'm not being real careful about it, but I could probably get that off if I really wanted to. But see, it's kind of it's putting, when I wipe on here like this, it's putting the paint back into solution almost instantly. Okay, and kind of turning it back into its liquid form. That being said, you can have this paintbrush sitting around for weeks and it can get crusty dry on here. You just run it right underneath the water, kind of run it through a little bit, flake it off, and that paint comes off really fast. This paint is just some beautiful, beautiful paint. It goes into solution just so fast. But anyways, that's my little demonstration right there of the kind of spray pattern, consistency of the paint and whatnot. Where to add it to your brush right here. You don't need to load up the whole thing. Well, maybe if you have like an 11 by 17 and you don't feel like, dipping into that 3 times and doing like this big thing, or if you're doing some kind of specialty thing where you're doing something that's 2 by 3 feet or something like that, then maybe you do load up a little bit more on that. Maybe you keep it a little bit thicker to get some of those stronger dots. But if you're doing card making and whatnot, just a little bit at the end like this, and just remember to just, release some like that, and then go back, have a lot of control, and then just release, 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 and then you're going back to that, and then you go up here again, and then you're just going that. Now see, there's a little bit of paint still on there, right? Let's see how that comes off like that. And that'll just wash right off. Okay? All right, so anyways, if you have any questions, drop me a note in the comments section. I don't have experience using some other types of opaque whites. You can give those a try. No, okay, now, alternatives. Let's say someone doesn't have something like this, okay? I think that this is definitely the most, the easiest thing to use. I don't know. I bought it at one time for $8. If it's the same price as some kind of like one stamp pad, you can use this on so many different things. And I'd really recommend it. It'll last you 20 years or something like that. And there's not too much media out there that just works easily, perfectly every time the way it's supposed to. It's very consistent and whatnot. I'd recommend picking up a bottle of this if you like that type of look and if you're a scenic stamper. It can just add so much to a piece. Snowfall, spray patterns of water. It can just be dew on the grass or something like that in the morning and glistening and whatnot. Stars, stars are a big thing. But, okay, other things that people have used, correctional fluid, okay, that's kind of a chalky type of thing too, and they might put it on some sort of brush. You might be able to use a paintbrush, like something like this. I think this paintbrush actually would work very well. I've never used it before. This is just a, I don't know, Grumbacher bristle. It's a number 20 brush. I don't know, you know, use whatever. It has to be kind of stiff though. You know what I mean? Something like this one's really, really soft. I don't know, you might be able to use something like that. But I don't know, try some different things. Maybe gesso or something like that, you know, could give you some sort of effect. I don't know about acrylic paints or something like that. Something that's not going to dry as, you know, so fast. I mean, you might be able to use it. It might have a certain other type of effect. Let's say if I spray this, and if it was wet, if I did it on some freshly inked up, you know, dye-based ink card, and if it was these little dots or little spray patterns are sitting wet on top of wet dye-based ink or dry dye-based ink, it might kind of that dye-based ink might colorize something like some other type of spray pattern that's not going to dry as fast. You know what I mean? Because if it's a water-based, you know, type of medium, this dries fast, so that's why it just remains opaque over whatever you spray it on. It's not going to make something go back into solution, bleed into it, and then dry. All right, but you know, that's not to say that other things can't work. I do know for a fact that some people have used correctional pens, okay, and there's just that correctional kind of whiteout ink on that, and I think they flicked it like this, okay, and it's given them a different type of, you know, spray pattern. It's probably thicker, I would guess, but I've seen those types of things, and I think they look great. I do use the paint pens to do little dot patterns like this, but you know, it's not going to be as varied or kind of random in terms of the pattern when you do it like this, but this is, you know, something of ultimate control over placing each dot. Now, if you look at these dots like this, I don't know, there's probably 400 on here, but some of them are like, you know, super small. You can use this in conjunction with those. You know, if you want a larger star, you can just kind of draw it in with this pen here, but you can also just draw them in like this, okay, with something like this. I wasn't using, I had my bleed proof whites for many years. I had it in school, but I didn't think about, you know, using it kind of in a, you know, splatter painting type of effect for, I don't know when I first started getting around to using it, but I don't know. I started using it and I just haven't stopped. Sometimes I almost have to keep myself from using this too much, you know. Otherwise, I want to use it on everything, you know. If it's a daytime scene at high noon, sometimes I spray pattern over it, and that, you know, I can just say, okay, that's just dust and, you know, the air or pollen or something like that. It just looks good, all right? So anyways, I hope that you kind of utilize this in your I don't know, your scenes out there and give it a try, or give some version of it a try out there. It's just a really great additional texture to a scene. It adds texture. It can add contrast into your pieces in terms of creating something very light in there. You know, even if it's a dark scene or a light scene, it adds that extra bit of white. It takes some area of the scene all the way back to white, so you're creating a lot of range and texture within a given space and the overall scene, okay? All right, so anyways, if you have any questions, like I said, drop me a note in the comment section and splatter away. Thanks for tuning into the channel.